Hello, hello. It is Kitty Shambliss here of Loving Without Boundaries. Happy Tuesday to you. Happy May. And I just want to say if you are, before I get started on the Facebook Live here, if you are looking for a community and you are not part of our community, on Facebook, our community is called Loving Without Boundaries, Healthy Open Relationships and Lifestyle Freedom. Our mission is to help people live their most authentic lives free from jealousy and insecurity, shame and guilt, and the pain of past infidelity in the open relationship and sex positive space so that they feel unstoppable and fall back in love with themselves. If that message resonates with you, if you're looking to live your most authentic life in a world that maybe doesn't quite understand when you're coloring outside of the lines of heteronormative monogamy, I invite you to come on over. We also have our podcast, Loving Without Boundaries, which is an award-winning podcast. We're nominated for Women in Podcasting right now. And there's a voting competition that's going on. And you can, of course, vote for the women in podcasting that resonate with you. If you want to cast a vote for Loving Up Without Boundaries, we are in the personal growth space. But you can also vote in all these different areas as well, different categories. So with that, I have a lovely topic for you today. I'm normally here with Coach B. She is feeling a bit under the weather and she was not able to join us here, but she is sending you her love. She loves supporting this community. She's been with our whole mission here for, it's going on 4.5 years now, and she deeply cares about you and your success. So the topic is the gift of empowering questions through the lens of living your most authentic life, and also from the lens of general life coaching. But here we're really looking at it more specifically through consensual non-monogamy in all its various forms. So the issue is that as humans, it can be very normal to ask ourselves questions that can be very disempowering, or that could be shame inducing, that can cause us to spiral downwards. And there's a great book called Change Your Questions, Change Your Life. And that's one of the premises of the book, is to realize that the questions that we ask ourselves, that's something we have control over, like honoring what we have control over and what we don't. We do have control over our self-talk, our self-reflective questions, how we speak about ourselves or to ourselves when nobody is around. We have power over that. But the problem is that so many of us can be asking really disempowering questions like, why am I being so stupid? Why did you say that? What if I make a mistake? What if I say the wrong thing? What if I hurt my partner? What, all these questions that can really take us down instead of asking more empowering questions. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And we all do this, right? Um, I love Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. He loves to say to learn how to think about what you're thinking about. And I love that because it puts us in a more empowered position to be able to question what are the thoughts that are running through our minds and what are the questions that we're asking ourselves, which is really an interesting and empowering place to be. That puts you in a place where you can actually do something that puts you in a more positive place to take the power back. And what can happen though, if we keep asking questions that are shame inducing, like, why are you so stupid? Why did you do that thing again? That can put us in a chronic state of feeling emotionally unwell. And just like we go to the gym to get physically healthy, we have to condition that. We have to keep going to the gym or taking that walk and putting in the work to work on our physical health. Our mental and our emotional health is just as important. And we may not be giving ourselves credit for how much power we can have over that. So if we're constantly asking ourselves questions that take us out, that where we're beating ourselves up, we're shaming ourselves, we can be putting ourselves into a chronic state of emotional unwellness without even realizing that it's partly a decision that we can decide to turn that around. And it's also a skill that we can be learning how to self-soothe. So instead of beating ourselves up, instead we can learn how to self-soothe. But without building that skill set, then we're not knowing how to emotionally and mentally take care of ourselves. And of course, it's great to have people around us to support our well-being. I mean, that's partly why some people really resonate with consensual non-monogamy or polyamory. It can be a way to intentionally build families in a really beautiful, amazing way. Yet, if you're not learning how to cultivate the different skills to help those relationships, which are complicated, which can be messy, if we're not building those skills, we can not know how to thrive in those relationships. We can be barely surviving, or worse, we can be damaging those connections, damaging our own trust in ourselves, or damaging the trust that we have with our loved ones if we're not building some of these different skill sets. The other thing that can happen is we can just notice that we get in patterns that are toxic or dysfunctional with our partners, having the same old arguments. Because it's also about the questions we're asking each other. If you think about that, we could say to our partners, why did you do that? Or what were you thinking? Right? If we ask questions like that, we're kind of shaming our partners and making them wrong. Yet we can also ask better questions, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But if we stay in kind of toxic or dysfunctional patterns in our questions, including how we're talking to our partners, we'll have the same old arguments, and then we'll have the same old results. I love the definition of insanity that we've all heard of, the definition of insanity of being like expecting different results even though you're doing the same old thing. Like, that just doesn't make any sense. So if you want a different outcome, then you need a different way of thinking, a different type of mindset, and you also need to be taking different actions, having different strategies. And a lot of times we sometimes need some help to figure that out, especially when we're talking about consensual non-monogamy, because I often say that most of us have not had great role models for a healthy monogamous relationship, let alone have healthy and beautiful role models for how to practice consensual non monogamy well and ethically in a way that is sustainable, that feels loving and kind, not only to ourselves, because the people often forget that the most important relationship we all have is the relationship that we have with ourselves. That's the most important relationship, because from there, it ripples out into positive ripples of awesome into our other relationships, or it can also ripple out negatively. We can unintentionally be hurting our loved ones around us if we're not learning to fill our own cup first. That's also a skill that you can be developing. So, with that, a way to turn this around is knowing that you can learn valuable skills, whether that's learning how to self soothe in a really beautiful way, building affirmations and empowering thoughts, and knowing that you can ask better questions. Some great questions can be things like, what am I being called to learn right now? What is this tender emotion looking to teach me? What maybe still needs to be healed on my side of the fence? I wonder what my partner might be needing right now. I wonder how I can show up and be supportive to them. Like, those are more empowering questions, coming from curiosity, coming from empathy. Another great question, what would love do? And that could be both self-love, but also, how would love show up for my partner right now? How can I be practicing self responsibility and extreme ownership for the dynamics that are happening that don't feel very good in my relationships? So those are all just some great empowering questions. And another thing that you can be doing is to regularly practice observing your own thoughts. One way to do this is to keep a journal. So remember what I said earlier, that Dr. Joe Dispenza quote, to get better and better at thinking about what you're thinking about. And there can be a lack of awareness. So if you have a journal, it can be something you just kind of keep with you, very small, or you can use in notes on your app. Just notice what's my self-talk? How am I talking to myself when no one's around? Is it kind? Is it unkind? Would I speak this way to my best friend that I really love and care about? Or my sister, my brother, somebody, that I really have deep love for? And what are some of the questions I'm asking myself? I wonder, does this sound like a disempowering question where I'm shaming myself or beating myself up? What could be a more empowering question that I can ask? If we have a scary story, a scary narrative, and definitely that can show up with consensual non-monogamy. What if my partner falls in love with this new person in their life and they leave me, right? That can be a very scary inducing question. But instead, we can get more curious, see things from a different perspective, and ask things like, what else could be true? What's another possibility that could happen? How am I being called to lean into personal growth? Or what am I maybe needing to heal from the past that's now showing up in this present moment? You can also learn how to pattern interrupt. If you are going down that rabbit hole that we talked about, or what ifing in a scary way that can take us out, you can learn to pattern interrupt by asking a great question. We've been talking about that here, of course. You can also pattern interrupt using your body. You can jump up and say, "This is crazy. Why am I saying these crazy questions to myself that aren't empowering me?" And just kind of use your body. Or you can go out for a walk out in nature, look up at the blue sky, remembering that behind every cloud, there is always a blue sky. Just really, that's another way to be self soothing. So, those pattern interrupts are a way to call forth the best version of you so that you don't just keep repeating the same patterns from the past that may not be fully serving you. And you can also compile a list of empowering questions to use habitually. So I've already given you some that you can write down. What am I being called to learn? What patterns from the past that aren't serving me are showing up now? What are some pattern interrupts that I can use to break some of those destructive habits or patterns that aren't serving me? What's maybe an unmet need that is showing up right now? And how can I honor that all of our needs are life affirming, positive, and beautiful, and to honor the beautiful soul that is simply just experiencing a need that is looking to be filled? So, with that, I hope that you all took away some great nuggets from this. And if what I found from the work that I do is sometimes we're not really able to figure some of this out on our own. And I really believe that it's really important to have mentors and a support system in your corner that has your best interest at heart. Somebody that really cares about your well being and where they're passionate about the work that they do. So if you're thinking that maybe you might want to work with a coach, you might want to join a process, a proven structured plan on how to navigate some of these tricky waters that do come up in sometimes messy and complicated consensual non-monogamy. Ask me how I know, because I've been through those situations myself. And that's exactly the people that I love to work with, is people who want to grow, want to learn. They have an open mind. They are coachable. They are committed to their own overall well-being and the well-being of the most cherished relationships, and they want to do the work. So if that's you, if you might want to at least have a conversation to see if you are ready to potentially work with a coach, it all just starts with a conversation. It's simply a free call. And I just put that link up here. It is lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply. When you go to that link, it simply takes you into my calendar, and just find a time slot that works for you. There'll be a very brief form for you to fill out. And that just helps set us up for success on that call as I learn just a little bit more about you. And then we'll both simply show up on that call and have an honest, sometimes very deep transformative conversation and see if we are a fit, see if I can help your situation. And if so, we'll talk about a game plan on how to move forward. If we're not a fit, that's okay too. And I will do my best to steer you in the best direction for you so that you get a lot of value and clarity from this really important conversation that we get to have. And I do this because I care about this community. I'm super passionate about it. I started this mission back in December of 2012. And this is what I eat for breakfast. This is what I live and I breathe. So if that resonates with you, if that speaks to you, if something I said here is something we want to unpack on that call, feel free to go to that link. It's again, lovingwithoutboundaries.com. /apply. And you can simply just go there and see it. You can also go to my website where there's lots of free resources and do a little bit more research and make sure that you are ready to have an honest and a beautiful conversation. So with that, I will leave it here and just say again, if you're looking for a community, feel free to find us on Facebook, Loving Without Boundaries, Healthy Open Relationships and Lifestyle Freedom. There's also my podcast, Loving Without Boundaries, and my book, Jealousy Survival Guide, How to Feel Safe, Happy, and Secure in an Open Relationship. And with that, I will see you next time. Take care.